You clicked the video because you want to learn and master minimal graphic design, and you're in the right place with this course. But first, we need you to dispel a myth and a common misconception that many graphic designers actually have. Minimal graphic design is not a trend or a phase. It's a design technique that can be used in small ways or very obvious ways. But it's important to know how or when to use it. And if you can learn and master the use of minimal design, you'll find it insanely helpful to you and your graphic design career. So let's quickly and perfectly illustrate what the key principles of minimal design actually are. The first principle of minimal design is less is more. But that doesn't mean we just remove things on our designs without thinking, or that we just simply add a bunch of white space here, there, and everywhere. It means that we do not overcomplicate a design, which we're going to look at very soon. Now, the second principle of minimal design is emphasis on white space and balance. The third principle is that any minimal approaches or decisions should respect the design message. And hey, don't worry, because we're going to break down every aspect of minimal graphic design throughout this entire course. So, the first main module that we need to discuss and look at is how color is considered when taking into account minimal graphic design. And here's a sentence you need to remember in regard to minimal design. Minimal design is about using the least amount of design assets and techniques possible while keeping the message and visual language highly effective. So when we look at color, we can see that the misconception that minimal graphic design is black and white or mainly just white and grey is not true at all. The first thing you need to keep in mind is to restrict your color palette down to 2 colors, possibly 3 if done correctly. And to demonstrate this, we can quickly look at the iconic branding of the Apple iPod adverts back in the day. And a shout out to those who were actually around back then and who know how effective this branding campaign actually was. Those posters heavily restricted the color palette. But why does minimal design restrict the color palette? Now, it must have a purpose, right? And yeah, that purpose is that when fewer colors are used, the brain processes the design more easily, reducing cognitive load and creating a sense of order and simplicity. This means the design's message is easier to get across to the audience. Here's the really important thing though. In minimal design, each color you use must be highly intentional, and that's because fewer colors make each one more impactful. So with that in mind, as a designer, you should focus on how specific colors evoke emotions or convey brand identity, depending on your design project, of course. This is more true than ever when you are utilizing minimal techniques on a design. And this is why most brands leverage just 1 or sometimes 2 colors around their entire identity. That's because it's easier to remember, and the color of choice will have a huge impact psychologically speaking. Now, it might be something like blue for a bank to evoke trust, or red to create excitement. But when it comes to using the restrictive palette that I spoke about, you need to be aware of accent colors. Now, the accent colors can be one of the 2 to 3 of your palette, but they don't have to be. Accent colors should be used sparingly to highlight key elements on a design, adding directional cues or emphasis to CTAs or other aspects of your design that need to be seen. But to wrap up this first section into a nice little package, when considering color from a minimal design approach, restrict the palette back to 2 or 3 colors, really consider what the color means from a psychological point of view and how that helps push your design's message or narrative. And then consider how you want to use accent colors, if at all. Now, another very important aspect of minimal graphic design is composition and also layout. If you get this wrong as a designer, it's a bad day at the office. But if you get this wrong when considering minimalism, then the entire design is going to fail. White space is a crucial element in minimal design. It provides breathing room for content and enhances focus, clarity, and visual impact. By isolating key elements, white space reduces clutter and directs attention to the most important aspects of the design. It enhances readability by creating clear separation between text and sections, and promotes a balanced visual hierarchy that naturally guides a viewer's eye around your design. And yes, this applies to pretty much any design, but when you're working with a minimal approach, you need to be ultra focused on the white space of your design. Now, here's a really cool tip that you should remember and which can actually help a whole lot. Now, on a design, the white space or areas where there is nothing at all is the fabric or the blueprint of your design. Imagine a room for a moment. What makes that living space a room? It isn't the objects or the furniture in the room, it's the space, because this allows those things to inhabit the room and actually exist in the first place. It's the same with white space on a design. It's so very important to have and to make use of in the right way. Kinfolk magazine makes extensive use of white space on their editorial designs, and they carefully place text and images surrounded by, well, lots of white space. This creates an elegant, balanced composition that reflects the magazine's minimalistic, thoughtful brand ethos. One thing you will almost always find with minimal design is a heavy emphasis on symmetry and balance. Proper alignment and symmetry create harmony and order on a minimal design, and this makes the layout feel balanced and really well polished. This again just pushes the attempt to make the audience not confused or uneasy in any kind of way. Now you can think of minimal design as being all about comfort and ease when it comes to the audience experience. For example, if you consider IBM's branding, it frequently uses symmetry and clean alignment. Their posters and the ads feature minimal text, balanced layouts, and symmetrical compositions, and this reinforces the brand's values of precision and innovation. It leads back to that message. Something else minimal design layouts and compositions love to adhere to is repetition and rhythm. IKEA often uses repetition in its minimalist print ads, featuring the same piece of furniture displayed from different angles or in different colors, and that's arranged in a uniform grid. This repetition reinforces the product's versatility whilst maintaining a clean, cohesive design. The repetition of the product helps maintain a unified aesthetic while subtly drawing attention to the product features like color or design details. But one thing you must consider is a focal point. Most designs have a focal point of some sort, but when it comes to minimal graphic design, the focal point is often crucial to the design's effectiveness. Because there are often few design assets or elements, the focal point will be way more obvious to viewers, and so it needs to relate to the design's message and function as a great starting point for your audience. And let's wrap up layout and composition before we move on to the next part of today's video. White space is your absolute best friend, and it should be considered the most important tool for layout in minimal design. Work out where and how your focal point can actually communicate your design's message and begin the journey, and then consider rhythm and repetition on your design elements through the design via flow states. Finally, ensure the design is aesthetically balanced so the audience doesn't become confused or uneasy. But a pro tip is that asymmetrical balance is often a great tool when used in a subtle way on minimal design. So, we've actually arrived at the typography section of this minimal graphic design course, so let's get it. And I'm sure you might expect me to say, use clean typefaces like modern sans serifs. Well, if you think that, you'd be mistaken, because what about this package design that uses a serif typeface? Is this not minimal? Or how about this logo that has gone slightly experimental? The thing is, when considering typography with minimal graphic design, the first thing that needs to be addressed is the same thing with any design, and that is typeface psychology. The style of the typeface must match the visual language and design's message. It has to appeal to the target audience. For example, imagine if this drinks brand used something like Papyrus for their branding. Yeah, that's not going to fly with the audience, that's for sure. So you need to first nail down the psychology of your chosen typeface. Other things you want to do is to limit the amount of fonts you use, ideally 1 or 2, and often just one font family, or in other occasions 2 at the maximum. You will also want to ensure that you have more than enough white space around legible text, and often headings or titles are given the most space on a minimal design. These approaches in regard to typography not only enhance readability, but they also ensure that your design remains uncluttered and impactful, allowing the message to shine through without any distractions. Now, importantly, we're going to take a look at some common mistakes graphic designers encounter or do when they embark on a minimal graphic design. Probably one of the biggest mistakes is when someone oversimplifies to the point of losing function. Like I said at the beginning, you do not want to start removing things for the sake of it. Remember, a design has a function, and only remove that which does not help that function. Another mistake is a lack of balance between minimal and engaging design. It's crucial to incorporate thoughtful details that enhance engagement without cluttering your design. This could include things like strategic use of white space, varying font weights for hierarchy, or subtle graphic elements that maintain a minimalist aesthetic while actually inviting the users to explore further. But by finding this balance, designers can create minimal designs that are not only clean and sophisticated, but also inviting and engaging. Another common mistake in minimal design is failing to create a focal point. In a minimal layout, the simplicity of elements can actually lead to an unclear hierarchy, and this makes it difficult for viewers to discern what is most important. Without a well-defined focal point, the design can feel scattered or overwhelming, and this results in a lack of engagement, basically. But here's perhaps one of the biggest mistakes of them all: not understanding that minimal graphic design is just a tool. You can incorporate minimal design techniques at just 1% strength, or you could go all out and make something that's highly minimal. It all depends on your brief, your audience, and the project. Do not assume that every design you make for a client will need to be highly minimal, or that minimal design is stupid and worthless. The truth is in the middle. It's got a time and a place. But if you want to push further in terms of graphic design skills and knowledge, you should check out the array of in-depth downloadable guides I have over at logodesignprocess.com. And you can find the link in the description box below or in the comment section. And of course, if you want to watch more graphic design courses by myself on this channel, just click that video on screen. But until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.